just a heads up, this tier list is based on how well the characters are written, in my own personal opinion, which is the only opinion that matters, to be honest, because I am the writer. I'm actually just kidding. Yeah, but basically, it's like, are these characters written correctly? Do they have the depth that I want them to have? Are their personalities well constructed? Are their stories nice or well done or whatever? Do they even have a background story, right? And in case that they don't, that's going to make them, or it's going to make their character value, can I even say that? Grade be lower, alright? It's a tier list. Everybody knows what a tier list is. I don't even need to explain it. I just want you to know what I'm basing on my opinion, I guess. Yeah, yeah. Also, if you see my roots, no, you fucking don't. It actually looks kind of nice, like it's charming. In today's OC shenanigans, you can see here that I have quite a lot. All right, at some point I just stopped counting. I stopped actually giving a shit about the characters that I added into my stories. There was a point in my life where I was writing a story named Hot Mess. If you haven't read it, go check it out. What the fuck are you doing? Why are you not reading it? And while I was doing it, I realized that I actually needed more characters. I'm gonna keep the microphone here, so if it's too loud, am I too loud? Well, that's your problem, honestly. Just lower the volume, that's it. But yeah, at some point I just stopped counting, and for Hot Mess I needed to even create more characters because I needed an entire new friend group, and I needed to create an entire new personalities and whatever the fuck. But are we going to check them all out? No, I just chose the characters that appear more often, as well as introducing 2 new characters. This is actually just my way to goof around. I hate that word. Holy shit. Why did I even say that, man? But it's just my way to goof around and show you 2 new characters that, it's like their birthday, okay? It's their birthday. They get to do whatever they want. So, let's begin. I'm going to start with Kyle, because I don't even know why I put him there. Maybe because I was thinking of antagonists in the beginning, then I just kind of changed to whatever. So let's begin with Kyle Wright, shall we? Okay, so Kyle Wright in the beginning was supposed to be it was supposed to be an antagonist, alright? That was the main idea for Kyle. Kyle was supposed to be a piece of shit, alright? Period. There was nothing else to it. I just wanted someone that wasn't a closet, honestly. It's someone that it is clearly gay, and he just refuses to accept it. That's why his major issues come from that, alright? But at some point I was like, listen, thank you. That's just not enough anymore. And as I started writing more about Kyle, it wasn't until Morbid Stuff came out that I was, when I was writing Morbid Stuff, not that when Morbid Stuff came out, but when I was writing Morbid Stuff and I used Kyle again, I was like, I could actually do so much more to Kyle. And honestly, at this point of my life, I feel like Kyle Wright is one of the best characters with the best development that he's ever had. He is an antagonist, but he can actually, he's an antagonist that doesn't necessarily is bad, right? So his background story is actually really amazing. In all of my works, Kyle follows the same pattern of someone that is extremely talented but is kind of pushed over for his parents. Due to his parents' pressure, he kinds of break. And in the universes where Kyle has the bad ending, that is something that you will see in all of my characters, is that they have a happy ending thing, they have a bad ending thing, right? So depending on what happy, good ending they have, their personality follows the same route, right? By this, I'm not saying that, if they have a good or bad ending, doesn't matter because they're gonna be a piece of shit. No, what I'm saying is that every time, that depending on what ending they have, the personality is super well constructed, and it follows a consistent pattern of behavior. So, and Kyle is the mere proof of that. I love it. I love him very much. He has a really amazing personality. He's a perfectionist. He is ambitious. He is extremely kind too. He's really guilty, and he cannot stand doing bad things. He often constantly reminds himself that he doesn't really want to do the bad things that he is forced to do in the bad ending routes, right? So because of that, honestly, for whoever reads my stories, if you don't, what the fuck are you doing? But if you do, you might know that Kyle can be a piece of shit. At least in Tracer, he was a piece of shit. But then in some other works like Morbid Stuff, Hot Mess, Kyle can be a little baby, alright? He's a good boy. For that reason, Kyle goes to the letter A, alright? It's not gonna be tier C, because tier S, sorry, because I don't consider like Kyle's actions in the stories are like extremely relevant or really, I don't even know. There's just something about his implication in the stories that don't really stream tier S for me. However, he is a really good character, so I'm going to give it a tier A for that matter. Alright? Then we follow with Grace Quintanilla. So Grace Quintanilla is an OC. She's not supposed to be an antagonist. She is a secondary character. She's the girlfriend of one of my other OCs. Grace Quintanilla has an amazing personality. She is a sunshine. Most of people that read about her, they all kind of describe her about the same way, right? Like, she is a sunshine. She's a really good girl, and she is hilarious. She can be really strong-willed and also deal with really strong, intense emotions. We can actually make her a little bit annoying or exasperating to read sometimes, but she has one of the most heartbreaking backstories, as all Sunshine characters do, because I like to follow that pattern, and sometimes cliches are there for a reason because they just work, alright? And why not, alright? So, however, even though Grace is an amazing character and I love her a lot, I don't consider her personality to have that much depth, okay? So, even when I feel like every story where Grace appears, she makes the story better, because even for comedy relief or actual implication in the story or plot, right? Because her personality, her decision making can be really important for the plot, but that doesn't mean necessarily that her personality is well constructed. I'm just gonna say, even though she's an amazing girl and I love her very much because she is really cool, I don't really think that she goes in tier S or tier S, C, S, yeah, or A. She goes in tier B, right? Tier B is a really good character, but that is not necessarily very well developed, that her personality and actions are not really to the point that I like. I would definitely love to navigate her more, maybe because CJ that is her girlfriend, and she's probably one of the main characters that in all of my stories. She has definitely more protagonism, and her characters has definitely more development, but Grace doesn't. So because of that, even though she's amazing, I'm gonna leave her in tier B. Sorry. Why am I apologizing? I'm sorry, Grace. Alright, anyway. When your parasocial relationships force you to apologize to your OZ. What? Anyway, so next character is Lucas Reed. Alright, so Lucas sucks. Statement of the year. Lucas is an antagonist, and he's one of the worst antagonists added to Scott Morgan. I despise Lucas a lot. Lucas is the father of Gavin Reed, the main character of my stories, in all of the universes, and every time that Lucas is involved, there will be abuse, murder, just something awful happening. So, however, that doesn't necessarily, even though his implications in the stories are extremely crucial, it doesn't mean that his personality is extremely well developed, to be honest. If I have to describe his personality, I would say that he is a villain, of course, but that's it, right? Like, he's the bad guy that he's supposed to be the bad guy and nothing else. He doesn't really have a background story. You don't know anything about Lucas other than he fucking sucks. And because of that, however, I will say that even though he doesn't have a really amazing background, he still is crucial for all the stories. Like, his implication in the stories is just, you cannot have a story without Lucas, basically. But you don't know anything about Lucas either. So even though his behavior is consistent in all of the fics, and he has a congruent pattern of behavior following all of the stories, right? I still would just put it in tier C, right? It's not a tier D. Maybe it's a tier D. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. Lucas is definitely goes in tier D because I was like, tier C though, girl. You're sure? And I'm actually not. So Lucas goes in tier D because even though he's an amazing antagonist, and I'm gonna say amazing in the word of like he's just a bad guy. Yeah, he's not really amazing. I'm just gonna say he's an antagonist, works as antagonist, period. Nothing else, alright? Then we go with Talia Jeddah. So Talia is supposed to be the best friend of, can be the best friend of Gavin Reed, or she simply can be the bridge between friend groups. Talia is a really strong-willed kid. She is very kind, and she doesn't necessarily have a lot of character to her now. Talia, she is a secondary character, and I would even say that she's like a third character, if that's impossible. She's not really a main protagonist. You can't have a story without Talia. She's not really crucial for stories. She can be easily replaced sometimes. However, she's still a really good comedy relief character for Hot Mess, for example. She still implicates with the main protagonist, right? Such as maybe being their best friend, maybe just being a friend that gives advice. But Talia, there's really not much to her. If I have to describe her again, I would say that she's a strong-willed kid. She's very intelligent. She's a very smart woman. She loves a lot. And she put her friends first all the time. She always is looking out for them. So she's a really good character. She has a really good personality. That's what I'm trying to say here. But the personality and her implication in fics is really replaceable. It's not really that developed. So I'm just going to put Talia in tier C. Okay? She goes in tier C. Sorry. Talia, I'm sorry. Now, let's go with Clay Anderson. So Clay Anderson is supposed to be the son of one of the main characters of the actual game that I base my stories on, or that I used to at least, because at this point I don't even know what my stories are, but it doesn't matter. Thing is, Clay Anderson, it is an amazing character. I love him very much. He was one of my comfort characters back when I was writing Tracer because his implication in the fic was just amazing. He is definitely the older brother type of character. He protects, he takes care of people. He's a very intelligent right man, and one thing that I really associate with Clay is just gentleness, right? Like he's extremely gentle with everyone, and I feel like he represents that like a warm embrace almost to all of the other characters. If you have Clay on the story, you'll know that at some point if something goes wrong, Clay can fix it. Or he can help you fix it at least. Is he replaceable? Honestly, no. I was thinking about it, but for Tracer, in Hot Mess, it doesn't appear. And the reason why he doesn't appear in that story is because I knew that if I added Clay, he would gain protagonism too. And I couldn't afford to do that. Like, the attention had to be placed solely on the main characters. And Clay's actions, I felt like they could actually do or repercute something in the decision making of the main character. So that was the reason that I didn't add Clay. Because he couldn't be there, or otherwise characters wouldn't do certain things. That's how powerful his presence is. He's important for other characters' decision making, right? For that reason, he's not in a tier S, but he's definitely a tier A because he's amazing. And I don't think that I could replace Clay with no one, honestly. Even though I have another character that kind of resembles him, Clay is not replaceable, definitely. Then I go with George Duen, okay? So George, he's also an antagonist, but I wouldn't say that George is evil. I say that George is just under very bad influence. George is supposed to be the sidekick or just the partner of Ryan Hillen, that I'm gonna get to him in a bit. But George doesn't have a personality. Sadly, George is just the dog on a leash for Brian. He follows whatever Brian tells him to do. In that sense, he's very devoted, but at what cost? Honestly, he's kind of blind, kind of dumb, doesn't really have any logical... I mean, he obviously thinks that he is doing something right by working and doing what Brian tells him to do, but I wouldn't give George a very developed personality other than just following what Brian tells him to do. it sucks because I feel like George has a lot of potential that is still not seeing the public or myself, because his involvement in the stories have been so far just being a Ryan's lover, and there are some things that George has done. For example, in Morbius stuff, there were some things that George did that they didn't change the course of action of things. By that I mean that the things that George did could have been done by somebody else maybe, but George's intentions and motivations are not replaceable, because no other character would love Ryan as much as George does. So in that sense, George is not replaceable because his motivations are not shared by anybody else. However, his personality and his actions can definitely probably be replaced by someone else. For example, Ryan himself. So I would give George a tier C, and that's it. He's about on the same level as Talia. They both have motivations clear, but their implications are not really that, yeah. Then we have Caroline Jane. Caroline Jane, or CJ, is one of my main protagonists of every story that I write. CJ is based on my best friend and my editor of my most important stories. I have other editors, such I have Limer, I have Anna, I have Kali. They're amazing. Hello. They're super cool. But CJ has been with me since the beginning, and in the beginning she told me actually that she wanted just to be Gavin Reed's best friend. Like she asked for it, and I was like, you know what, that would actually be funny. So yeah, why not? And what started off as kind of a joke, honestly, it ended up in CJ becoming one of the most loved characters of everybody, honestly. She's a really strong-willed character. Her actions cannot be replaced. Her bond with characters cannot be replaced either. Her motivations and even her background story. She has everything. She's a very well-developed and constructed character. You cannot replace CJ in any of the stories. There's no other character that can do what CJ does. She's special. She has a lot of depth, not only in her personality, but also in the bonds that she has with everybody. Like, CJ has touched every timeline in that way, right? So CJ is a tier S, the first character that I'm gonna put in tier S, because she is not only one of the main ones, but is extremely well constructed. Her motivations are just as good. I would say so because I write her, okay? Her motivation for CJ, she can deal with mental illness at the same time of the bond and love that she has for characters. Is like they're both obviously motivations for her actions, but even still, like, it's not that CJ does things only for the sole purpose of other people. CJ has had impact on every character whenever she fights with them, whenever she tries to do something. There was some point in Morbius stuff where CJ was actually the one fighting with the main characters because her own personality didn't allow her to just let them do whatever they have to do because convenience of the plot, right? Like, CJ is a living being in the fix that she can actually change timelines. Just like Clay, for example, that when I was saying that if I added Clay in the story, Clay would have changed a lot of things. It's the same thing with CJ. If CJ is there, she's going to change something, yes or yes. So, tier S, period. Then we go with Julia Morphy. Julia Morphy is an amazing antagonist, and I love her very much. Currently in the book that I'm writing right now that is not out yet, she appears in that book, and I could not be more thrilled with how amazing her character developing is, honestly, and how her personality shows even more. Because we can see a little bit of Julia in Morbius stuff. You can see that she is the definition of I'm gonna get what I want, period. Whatever I have to do, I'll do. She's really threatened and menacing. Like, if you read about Julia, you know that, okay, so something can be like super bad or super good. Doesn't matter. Julia in Hot Mess is like the only good ending that she has of all of my stories, because it's the only story in which she is not traumatized and she's not doing bad shit. She's simply just there, living her best life. With a little bit, there's some things that you can read that are implied that her family is not really the best. But even then, that is the only story where I write Julia as a happy character. When she doesn't have the good ending route and she goes in the bad ending, storylines, she is a nightmare. She can be a nightmare, honestly. And with this new book, I realized that Julia is also an amazing antagonist. You can't replace Julia, honestly. And I thought about it, I thought about adding or putting another antagonist such as Kyle in Julia's shoes for this fic. And I was like, it just doesn't work because Kyle's personality is not as strong or intense as Julia's. Like, Julia is the only one that could ever fulfill that role. No one else. And it's so exciting. Like, for me, it's so exciting to write not only a woman as an antagonist, to be not actual evil, because she is not evil. I would not call her evil like Lucas, but she can be evil. Like, she can be a nightmare of a woman, and I love that shit. So, you know what? Julia's personality is really interesting to write because she's so smart and she wants to get what she wants, but she cannot really erase her humanity from her. So, like, there's going to be things that she realizes are not good. She forces herself to do them, and afterwards is like, oh, okay, I'm about to get what I want, but at what cost do I really want this? And just the catharsis of her is extremely pleasant to watch. Like, is to read, not to watch, but you get it. You get what I mean. It's amazing. It's awesome. I would put her in a tier S, but I don't really think that her background is not even written yet. It's only in my head, and she hasn't had that much protagonism in this story. So even though the current book that I'm writing involves her big time, I cannot put her in tier S just yet. She needs a little bit more appearances in the stories for me to also realize how irreplaceable she is. But as in right now, she has the potential of being an amazing antagonist. So I'm going to put Julia Murphy in tier A. Then we have Harley Bailey. Harley Bailey, or the himbo of the group. Harley is the partner of Eugene. Harley is a really funny, charismatic guy. Is definitely, you might be able to see that all of my characters protect each other, which is something that I gave them. It's a trait that they have, honestly. Between their friend group, they all protect each other big time. They take each other, they take care of each other like a family. And Harley, it would be like the second dad of the group, right? So Harley, however, doesn't necessarily have a really interesting background story. It's just a man written by a woman, period. Like, there's nothing else to it. Is Harley replaceable? Yes and no. I would say that a story without Harley, it can still be completed, but when Harley is in it, you can add some interesting things for the plot, and he can change some things, like the decision making of characters when he is there. Is he necessary though? Not really. I have written stories without Harley and they work just fine. Is he good to have around? Definitely. But because of that, Harley goes in the tier B. I'm going to put him in the tier B because unlike Talia, Harley has had in certain stories a lot of protagonism, such as Tracer, for example. And in Tracer, Harley could not be replaceable. But again, that was just because of my choice of characters. But I would have to say that his personality of almost like the connector of everybody, similar to Talia, like she's the bridge between friend groups. In Harley's case, he is the connector of everybody. Like, not only friend groups, he connects everybody, everyone, because Harley gets along with everyone, even antagonists, right? So because of that, I would put him in a tier B. Then we go with Jenna Navarro. Jenna Navarro, she is one of my girls' favorite girl. Though she doesn't really have a lot of protagonism. I would love to write more about Jenna, but as it right now, I haven't gotten a chance, honestly, to put her as one of the main characters of the stories. It's kind of sad, honestly, because Jenna is a good girl. Like, she could have a lot of potential too if I got the time. She was introduced only as Chris Miller's girlfriend, but then as I continued writing her, I was like, she and Talia are like are sidekicks of each other at this point. They're like best friends. Something that I developed for Hot Mess is that their bond got really strong and they're just very good friends. Like they hang out all the time. Is she replaceable? Yeah. Is she necessary? No. Can I just erase her from stories? Yeah. Honestly, yeah. The main thing that Jenna had, it was the first time that I introduced her was in Mere Hands, but she was even just like a background character, and then in more stuff she got a little bit more involved in the story, but like super necessary? No. So you know what? Jenna is not a tier D. Ishii though. I think that Jenna is going to be the first character that I'm going to put in tier D. Because even Talia has more protagonism and depth to her. And Jenna, not really. Like, for Morbius stuff, she was... There was a point, there was like an arc of her and Chris that was important. But it was, to be honest, it was more important for Chris than it was for her. So... I don't think her influence goes to tier D or tier C, sorry, character. She definitely goes for tier D. I'm sorry, Jenna. I love you, but I'm sorry. Anywho, Alex Patel. Okay, so Alex, little boy, baby boy. I love this man. Alex is definitely an amazing main character. Whenever I write Alex, I know that if things go south, Alex is also one of the people that can fix it, or at least one of the people that can reason with the characters, right? So not necessarily do something for himself to fix the whole thing, but he can definitely talk things with characters and, you know, help them resolve situations. Alex is Clay's partner, so they match each other's energy a lot. Alex, similar to Clay, again, he is a warm character, honestly, to write. His decision making, he has protagonism in a lot of books. Currently, in the one that I'm writing, he's important. Period. I'm not gonna say more. Whoa, what the fuck? This is moving. He has a lot of protagonism. He is important for the story, for the plot, and without Alex, things change a lot. So I was thinking, can I replace Alex with someone else? No, I can't. Even if he doesn't have a lot of lines or interactions, whenever Alex appears, there is something important happening around him. And if I replace Alex with someone else, the story is just simply not the same. Because Alex's actions are selfless. He's an extremely selfless character. He does anything for love. And that is one of the traits that I like the most about him. It's just that you know that Alex has the potential to save whatever situation he's in, and that is amazing. So to be honest, for Alex, I don't feel like putting him in tier B, C, or D is appropriate. I would say that, but at the same time, a tier A can be a lot, and I don't really think that he goes there, so I'm gonna put him in a tier B. Just to be fair, because again, he's like a tier B period A, like he's in the middle. I would just put him in a tier B for now, because he also doesn't have a lot of background story, at least not as detailed as all the other characters. He has one, not as detailed, however, and I'm like going back on all of my works. Even though Alex is in like almost every one of them, I still would say that the only bad thing about Alex is that he doesn't have that many flaws. That makes him not as organic as other characters, because no one is perfect. So the fact that Alex, I struggle to find flaws with him, that tells me that he's probably not well developed, but he's not bad, right? He's not a bad character, but he's definitely not that well developed yet. So for that reason, I'm gonna put him in a tier B. Now, and with that comment, I would also just like to say that with Jenna, I really cannot describe her with flaws or really good positive traits. She's a very plain character. She can be just a positive character to have around. She has never been a negative character to have around. And that tells me that she is not well developed either. Because the fact that I can't just see her as a positive character without mentioning like a list of traits why she's a good character, it's a reason why she's in the tier D, because it cannot really name the traits. I know who she is in my head, but she is not well developed yet in the work. So it goes the same for Alex. That's one of the reasons why she's in the tier B, because even though he is in most of my works and he has implication in the plot, his personality is yet to be developed. So tier B. Eugene Carvelli. Eugene, one of the main characters of my ever first story, that when I started like actually running for the fandom. Eugene is the dad. TM. Okay? Eugene, he's so cool. He's based off one of my ex-friends, I'm gonna say, that is a very eloquent, intelligent man. Is very sensitive to, is very sensitive in the fact that he's very in touch with his own emotions. He is very intelligent, mature. Like, he's very intelligent emotionally, and he has flaws, such as he can, when he feels like there's nothing he can do, he becomes pathetic in his decision making, and can be really irrational if he feels cornered. So I can see flaws with Eugene. I can see why some people would not want him as a friend. Me personally, if Eugene was my friend right now, I would probably feel a little bit annoyed at him sometimes, because he would point out things that I do wrong, or he would try to fix my shit, and I would be like... So, you know what? The fact that I can say a lot of good things and bad things about Eugene, and that Eugene is not replaceable at all. Like, if Eugene... No, there's just no way. Eugene is able to gain the trust of characters in a way that no other character can, because he's not only charming, he is also able to talk sense and to talk his way through the emotions of characters, just so you can even get to know the other characters, but also get to know him. He's extremely intelligent, emotionally intelligent. So tier S. No question in my mind. Eugene is an amazing character, and he cannot be replaced in any of the stories. Brian Hillen. Alright, so Brian Hillen. Welcome, Brian. Hello, bitch. No one likes Brian, man. Brian sucks. Now, he sucks, but it doesn't mean that he's a bad written character. The fact that everybody sucks, what? That everybody hates him is proof that he's very well written. Brian has background, has reasons and motivations why he is the way that he is. He's a selfish, egocentric character with main character syndrome a lot, even though he's a secondary character sometimes. He has flaws, but he also has good traits, even though I hate to say that. Depending on the good or bad route that the character follows, he has an already set behavior. Like, you can spot the roots of his problems with this character easily. You can see the mental illness that he fights. You can see the things that he tries to fight within himself to be a better person. Brian is definitely not replaceable, because even though he's an antagonist, and I have many antagonists, he is one of a kind. Brian is just one of a kind. You cannot put Kyle or Scott or Julia in Brian's place, because Brian can be a good friend of the main characters first, and you can see his decline slowly until he finally becomes an antagonist. So I don't even know if I'm like okay to say this, but honestly, I feel like Brian Hillen has the potential to go in a tier S and a tier A. I'm confused right now, because even in the current book that I'm writing, Brian is important, even though he doesn't really appear. But the fact that I can go to Ryan, because I know that he would make a perfect role for that, like I can write Ryan and add in him the story because I know that he can change something important, means that Ryan has a lot of weight in whatever plot he's in. So you know what? Fuck it. Tier S. He's a really good character, as a really good antagonist. You can see the decline in an amazing way. So tier S. Then we go with Scott. Scott Morgan. Oh man. Okay, you know what? Scott Morgan is super easy to say. Like Scott Morgan is a tier D. I'm not gonna say tier C honestly because Scott Morgan has the personality of a bad villain that his name is bad guy, last name bad guy, another last name villain bad guy. He's just a bad guy. Like he sucks. He doesn't have any positive trait to him, but he also doesn't have any background story, any interests, hobbies. He's just a piece of shit, and he can use to do horrible things. That's his entire personality, just being horrible. So, tier D, easy peasy. Claire Alarie. Now, Claire, she's the mother of Gavin Reed in my stories. The thing about Claire, though, is that even though she changes a lot of things depending if she lives or dies, and depending on, she has a personality, she's very sarcastic, very cocky, she's an amazing mother. Her interactions with Gavin are always very heartwarming. She has background, but the fact that she doesn't really have a lot of interaction within the stories, and sometimes she doesn't even appear and she's only talked about, that doesn't really give me a lot to play with, like she cannot be a tier D because she is really important for the plot. So I think that I'm gonna put Claire in a tier C, because even though Claire can be in every story, she's mostly talked about, and you know who Claire is, but you know who Claire is, but you don't really see her at all. So yeah, like you know what her personality is like, but she's just like the good mom in most stories. That doesn't mean that in a few stories like she has background, she has etc. But still, I think no. Sorry, tier C. I'm sorry, Claire. Now the new OC. The reason why I actually did this video is because I wanted to introduce you all to Seth Poland. As you can see, I have a thing for antagonists whose name began with an S. I don't even know why. But yeah, Seth Poland is a new antagonist that I'm writing, and he was supposed to be, he is supposed to be what what Kyle was meant to be in the beginning, right? The reason why I wrote him is, first, I've been writing him for a few commissions that I wrote, and also in this new book he appears in the story. But Seth Poland is a pathetic man. He does evil to overcompensate for the fact that he is a failure in everything he has ever tried to do. So his evilness is just more proof of his own insecurities and failure of a person. And because of that, he doesn't necessarily have a good trait to him. He doesn't necessarily he is replaceable, because I could definitely just put Scott there. But Seth's and Scott's motivations are different. Scott is evil just for the sake of being evil. What Seth is evil for the sake of trying to compensate for his own miserable and fail life. Is he well constructed yet? No, because he's new. So I would definitely have to put Seth Poland in a tier D. Then we go with Nines Miller. Now, before people come at me barking and trying to puke into my throat and they shove me into the ground until I die, Nines is not my character. Nines is not a character that I wrote, it's not a character that I came out with, not at all. However, as you can see here, there are two Nines, Nines Miller and Nines Morris, and these two characters have definitely their own personality. And Nines Miller is the main character of my story, Morbid Stuff, main character of my story, Variants, and he is definitely one of the best written characters that I have. He has enough depth, obviously because he's the main character, he has enough depth at this point for me to play with him in any scenario that I want. Maybe even a new book. I can write his personality, I can write Nines Miller in different universes perfectly because I have the pattern of behavior of Nines Miller so well encrypted in my head that I can do whatever I want with him because I know him. And he is not replaceable, obviously. His actions are, because he's the main character, they're clearly important, but his decisions and actions and everything he does are extremely organic. He's not a villain. He's not an hero. He's not a hero. He's not, he's nothing like that. His actions are gray. He acts and behaves and talks like a real person would do, and he is definitely a tier S in my books. I love him as a character very much. Despise him as a person. Because if I knew him, we probably would not be friends. No, I'm just kidding. We would probably be friends. He resembles me a lot. But there's yeah, it's a tier S. Period. It's a really good character, very well written, very well developed. I can play with him in any universe that I want. I can make decisions for him because I know how he would react. That's how well you have to know a character to be able to be like, oh yeah, I know who your favorite animal is. That is something that I did in Twitter, by the way. If you want to follow me, go check it out. I don't know, I'm just saying that I made a list for all my characters and their favorite animals. Like, if you want to see it, you can. Anyway, so Chris Miller. Chris Miller is written sometimes as Nines Miller cousin, or if he's not written as Nines Miller cousin, he's just written as Nines best friend or roommate or whatever. Chris Miller. Chris Miller is a really good protagonist. He's a really good man, really good guy, teddy bear, amazing warm character. He has the strongest bonds with people, with the main characters all the time. Chris is remarkable in his own way. However, even though Chris has a lot of depth to his character, definitely, there are some stories in which Chris Miller's character background is not really important, or it doesn't really show a lot, and his decision making is also sometimes guided more by what other characters do. So he doesn't really have like a really strong personality, such as CJ, for example. Like, CJ can go against the main character's desires or even think that should happen in the story. She can go against all of that, while Chris will keep himself on the line almost. Like, he doesn't really do much when characters are doing something. So in that sense, he can feel a little bit not as organic as other characters. However, that also is because his personality is shy, a little bit reserved, and he doesn't really like to tell people what to do. So, one can debate that it's probably because of that the reason why Chris Miller keeps himself on the line all the time. But he's definitely not replaceable at all. He is very important for the plot. If Chris is there, you know that at least Nines' actions are going to change one way or another. And one of the reasons why I'm grading these characters is by how influential they are. And Chris Miller is definitely really influential in decisions of Nines, such as Eugene, for example. Eugene's can influence Nines' decisions a lot, big time, and it's the same for Chris. However, Chris is not that. I would say that there's a lot to discover from Chris, but so far he already has an important role for the stories. So for that reason, I'm gonna put him in a tier B. I'm not gonna put him in a tier A because like I said, I feel like his personality is still yet to be shown more. Even though he has a really good background story, and even though in Morbid Stuff, Chris has definitely one of the most interesting arcs that I've written. But for other stories other than Morbid Stuff, I think that Chris Miller is still a little bit left behind, and you cannot really see much of him. And his decision making is important to the plot. For example, I'm not gonna say more. I'm just gonna say that his importance in the plot of my stories. He is important, but I think that without Chris, I have Eugene to replace him in influencing Nines' decision. And I was thinking like, I was gonna say like Chris Miller is not replaceable, but he kinda is. So, do I want to do that? No. Is it good to have in the story? Yes, because Eugene and Chris' personalities are really different, but their roles in the friend group are definitely similar. So if Chris is not there and Eugene is, then you know that Eugene can take care of the things that Chris would usually do, and vice versa. Like if Eugene is not there and Chris is there, like Chris can take care of it. So I hate to say it, but I think that definitely Chris would go in like a tier, not tier B. He cannot really reach tier A yet. Ugh. Yeah, sucks. I love him though. Like I'm gonna still be using him for like all of my stories if I can, because he's amazing. But yeah. Then we go with Nines Morris. Nines Morris is definitely the good, happy ending side of Nines Miller. He is an alternative Ruth, if you like to see it like that. They are similar in a few mental health struggles, but Nines Morris is definitely the most silliest and just funny characters that I've written in my life. I needed comfort, and Nines Morris is definitely able to give everybody that reads about him comfort. He has flaws. I made sure to write Nines Morris as a very organic character again. You can see the reason why he does the thing he does, and he definitely just acts like a person. He's very gray, similar to Nines Miller. He's extremely, extremely gray. He's not a hero. He's not a villain. He fucks up, but he also makes up, and he is obviously not replaceable. So, Nines Morris is super easy in my books. I have a really tender space in my heart for him. I really cherish him a lot. I could write about him in a lot of stories because just similar to Nines Miller, Nines Morris' personality is also really engraved in my mind, and I can just play with him in any universe that I want because I know him and I know what decisions he would make. So, it's a tier S. Then we go with Gavin Reed. Similar to Nines, Gavin Reed is not a character that I wrote. However, the interpretation that I'm going to be discussing right now is the interpretation that I have made about him. So Gavin Reed as the character that I write, not the character that is supposed to be canonically, okay, I just want to make that clear. Gavin Reed in my books or in my stories, he's a very troubled man. He deals with anger a lot, but I don't like to write Gavin Reed as the frumpy character that hates everything and everyone. I like to give him depth, and I like to give him a reason or motivations, real motivations for his violence, as well as redemption, because I believe that for Gavin Reed, redemption would be possible. Obviously, because he's one of the main characters, I've written him the most. I know him a lot. His personality can change a lot too. So Gavin Reed is not the same Gavin Reed as Bare Hands Gavin Reed or Hot Mess Gavin Reed, Tracer Gavin Reed. Gavin Reed changes in every universe, and his personality is always a treat to write, honestly, though it follows the same pattern of behavior of someone that is extremely troubled and he just wants redemption at the end of the day. And you can portray a lot of things with Gavin Reed. Gavin Reed is a very versatile character for mental health discussions. You can give him the depth of a really troubled man, and you can also give him the depth of a man that has left behind and he's now struggling to be better. So Gavin Reed is definitely a tier S character. I love him very much, and I feel like without him, stories just wouldn't be the same, and there wouldn't be no stories. And the last one, my new OC that I wanted to also introduce apart from Seth is Sergio. And yes, as you can see, I like name with S. Apparently, I don't even know, man. I didn't even realize. Sergio was supposed to be named in another way, but then I changed it because I was like, this is actually my relative's name, and I don't want him to be like that. So I changed it to Sergio. Sergio Medina is not really an antagonist. He is very similar to Kyle in the sense that he begins as a very naive character, but then ends up being extremely wise. You haven't read anything about Sergio, but the fact that I'm going to put him in a tier B should give you enough context to know that if Sergio is in the story, he can definitely be replaced with somebody else, but the fact that Sergio is there will make stories more interesting, because he can be the devil's advocate, and that is amazing. Sergio and Julia are working together sort of to say something like they're going hand by hand almost, and I am developing a friendship between these two, which is interesting to write, to say the least. Because Sergio is a very innocent man, I would say. He can be very innocent and naive. He can follow his values a little bit too blindly, and that can also affect his actions. But the fact that at the end he becomes wise and he realizes a lot of things, and his behavior changes a lot, and the things that Sergio can do in the story can be extremely crucial. That's what gives him a lot of importance over the plot. Because in the beginning, you almost forget about Sergio because he's just kind of there in the background, but then you kind of end up realizing that, oh my god, wait, this guy is actually important. So it's just not a tier D. You rate him in the beginning as a tier D, but then definitely you end up thinking of him as a tier B or even a tier A. But for this tier list, I'm going to put him in a tier B because you haven't read anything about him. But I'm very excited for you to do because he's amazing, and I'm very happy to just, I'm excited to introduce him as one of my characters, definitely. So, wow, that is almost an hour of talking about people that don't exist. Am I okay? I feel like I'm not okay. I feel like there's something wrong with me. I don't know why. Wow. Well, you know what? This is awesome. I love making tier lists, dude. I got so serious for a moment talking about my characters because, you mess with my shit, I'm gonna fuck you up. Like, if you tell them my characters are bullshit, see me on the ring, motherfucker. I'm gonna crush your skull. But as you can see, I have issues. I have issues with my characters. I love them like they're my sons and daughters. And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know that they all have birthdays, they all have zodiac signs, they all have favorite animals, sexualities, they all have even family trees. Like, you can see these characters in many ways, and I'm just very excited to share them with the public all the time, with an audience, for them to not only judge them, but also just fall in love with them as much as I do. Because even though most of these characters, like even like Jenna, Talia, Scott, even Scott, like, it sucks, but every character that I have written at this point, all of this, they're very important for me. And even though I say that they're replaceable for plot lines, like I could probably change characters to do these roles, I prefer not to do that because I like to watch them develop. I like to watch them interact with each other. Sometimes I just think to myself, like, how would a conversation with these two characters go? Like, how would that be? And I end up just kind of daydreaming about it, honestly, because I love it. I love it. It's really nice. So, if you have OCs, honestly, I would encourage you to just do this because it's really fun, and you end up I don't know, reminiscing a lot about the time that you wrote these characters and what was going through your head as you were doing it. And I have a lot of good memories coming up with these characters, like coming up with most of this. Sure, obviously my traits, because writers will write something similar to their own lives, that's just how life is. But also they have traits of friends, of ex-friends, of people that I used to know, of people, family members even. I can see a little bit of my sister, a little bit of, a lot of people just there. And that kind of makes them special in my books. They're all special. Even Scott, and Ryan, and George, and Lucas. Lucas is actually not special for me. He can, die. And I'll be totally fine with that. That's the reason why I kill him most of the time. Yeah. But anyway, thank you for allowing me to talk for almost an hour. I will proceed to, I'm probably gonna record more of these because honestly, I love to talk for for almost an hour. I have issues. I should probably go take my medication. Goodbye!